And welcome to Generación Latina. Here, your host, Carolina Peña. I have a very special guest tonight. I guess I say that all the time, but tonight especially because tonight's guest is somebody who really is empowering young people and in a way that makes the entire community safer and a better place to live. And I say that because he works with a lot of youth that are involved in violence and in conflict and gangs, especially in Virginia, but also here in Montgomery County, Maryland. I have the pleasure of introducing you to Juan Pacheco. How are you, Juan?
I'm doing awesome this morning, Carolina. Thank you for inviting me and just spreading a message of peace and forgiveness and just a inspirational message that we can change, people can change.
Absolutely. And really, you embody that message, your own life story. I got to know you a couple of weeks ago at the mini symposium, this youth event in Herndon, Virginia, organized by the Hispanic College Fund. And I was very impressed. I think what struck me is the ability you had to speak from the heart to students. Your own experiences in the street, growing up, and then now where you are today, it really is an amazing step that you've taken in the right direction. But you're not just keeping it all to yourself. You're giving it completely, back into the community and empowering other kids to do the same with their lives. You touched me with a lot of your words, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. But before that, let's get to know you. So who is Juan Pacheco?
Well, I'm currently doing a couple things. I work for a nonprofit organization. Actually, it's not a nonprofit; it's a movement, un movimiento. Of people who are tired of the madness, tired of all the violence that's out there in the community, different type of violence. We work with young people who are involved with, suicide, attempted suicide, and that's the type of violence. We, outreach to young people who have bad relationships, are involved in violence, and kind of like relationships that they're in, and we deal also with young people who are involved in street violence. So I do that because, again, that's my calling. That's part of my life journey, sharing and sharing just the way my life has been transformed and, telling young people, how to do it and how to change that life to a peaceful, more productive life, you know. And so, I'm doing that. I'm in school, but, and I'm happy that my journey has taken me that way, but it wasn't like that all the time.
Right.
I come here from a humble familia. I was born in El Salvador. I grew up in that world, of humility, of harmony. But things changed. Our country was involved in a civil war. My whole environment got twisted upside down when I no longer had those foundation that young people need to succeed, to thrive, to grow up in a safe world. That all got changed. Now I was out there in my community hearing, people come into my town and, destroy our banks and our infrastructure and, and brothers killing each other, sisters and sisters matándose, for an idea. And that's the sad part. We were killing each other for an idea that was not ours, right? And so mis padres, my parents did big sacrifice, un sacrificio muy grande. When we talk about immigrants living their home, they leave everything behind. They leave their homes, their familia, their way of life, their cultura, their language, their everything. They're uprooted. And so my parents did that to give me a second chance of life.
So how old were you when you came to this country?
8 years old.
Wow.
8 years old. Okay. And I guess that was my first experience with that struggle of pulling and trying to know who I was and being brought to a country that I didn't know, that I didn't like at the beginning, because I was torn away from everything that I knew. And as a young person, as a young kid, what parents tell you when they bring you to another country is everything's going to be okay, we're going to be happy, we're going to have money, we're gonna, everything's gonna be okay over there, and it wasn't okay, because in my mind, I was brought from the comforts of having a familia, a mother that was always there, a father that was, always available, to a country where my parents were absent. They weren't here anymore, my caretakers became, babysitters and teachers, and an apartment complex that was empty. So as a young kid, that struggle made me, number one, hate poverty, hate being poor, made me hate myself for being poor. It made me hate myself and my family for being different. We all get called names like, inmigrantes or minorities. And think about just the names we get called, minority. The root of that word is minor. Insignificant, small, chiquito, right? So for young people that keep on hearing these things in their environment, it makes a lot of change in their corazón. And they start kind of seeing a reflection that's not who they really are. And I believe that. I believe those those lies, esas mentiras. And so because I believe what was out in my environment, I started making wrong choices that were not me, that were not part of my character, that were not part of my purpose.
What would you say, at 10 and 11 and 12 years old, what would you say you were seeking? I mean, it sounds a lot of it like it was a struggle of identity and, not accepting who you are, seeing yourself in a negative light, maybe because of the way our community is seen at large. So what would you say you were after at that young age?
I was after belonging to a community, to una comunidad. I was after love, being understood. I was after people making the time to listen to me, to really listen to me, to listen to what was in my heart, to my thoughts, to my insecurities, to my dreams, to my vision, to anything. But where can a young person go if your parents aren't there? Where can a young person go if your counselors at school don't give you the time that you need to express the stresses in the heart or the doubts in your mind? Where can young people go when you need a hug, when you need to be accepted, to be nurtured, to be cared for? And sometimes I usually tell people that usually communities blame young people for the choices that they make. Every choice that they make, you blame the young person. We call them names, we label them, we want to lock them up, we want to charge them, we want to prosecute them, we want to do all these things to them. But we should be looking at what we either do to them or we don't provide for them. So I usually say that gangs are not, Latino young men or African American young men in a street corner are not the cause of the gang problems, or immigrants are not the cause of the gang problems. The gangs are the effect of communities that are ineffective. I usually say somebody dropped the ball on these young people, whether number one it was the familia, because the family should be the one that is always there, regardless of all the struggles that they're going through. Lost your job, don't have money, living in poverty, whatever. Your mom and your fathers and mothers should always be there. We need them to be there, right? Because again, our children are more important than their jobs, And so, or maybe it was the church that they attend to. Maybe the pastor didn't have enough time to provide to these young people. Maybe the churches should have been going out to the communities to get to the young people, making actividades where the young people live. Maybe it was the school who dropped the ball. Maybe when the young person needed a second chance, to be heard, because maybe the reason why he acted out in school is because he's going through all these issues and stresses at home in the community. But what schools do is have zero tolerance policies that throw the kid out instead of listening to the young kid, or maybe it was their friends or the communities or their neighborhoods that didn't give these young people the things that they need, those foundations of success that young people need, of support, of love, of understanding, of ayuda, So I didn't have that. I didn't feel I had those things. So eventually I made the only choice that made sense to me. Because if nobody out there who's supposed to be taking care of me is not listening to me, I'm going to go to those groups that will listen to me. And I was willing to pay any price to be connected to something, you know. And so I joined, you know, the only group that was there 24/7, operates in holidays, and who gave me what I needed.
Right.
And I didn't care what the price I had to pay to belong, to feel loved, to feel a brotherhood, you know. And so, you know, I usually also say that, you know, it's like, usually we blame the gangs for what they do. It's like, but if you look at the whole foundation of what gangs are all about, you know, these gangs don't start with the idea and the vision of just, you know, committing crimes or committing, you know, robberies or doing, you know, destruction of poverty. That's not their sole purpose. They get started because there's a whole bunch of young people that need to belong to something, and we as adults don't give them access to those things to belong to.
Exactly. It's love, it's belonging, it's a brotherhood. You know,
It's
things
about-
that we could find at home, you could find in church, like you said, and yet, you know, we could be lost quite easily. And then you pursued this lifestyle. I know I brought a lot of consequences to you, and I don't know how comfortable you are speaking to that. But I guess what I want to know is specifically what was the, you know, here you are today speaking to youth, right? So I want to know the connection. At what point, what was the turning point for you? How did it all come together for you to, you know, move out and break out of the cycle of violence and crime?
Well, you know, that it took a long time. You know, if you've grown up in an environment of violence, right? And for me, it started in El Salvador. You know, follow me through here to Northern Virginia, where I was thrown into a violent community. You know, and there's violent communities just like the one I grew up in all across America. You know, we call them names. We call them barrio, the barrio, or we call them the ghetto, or, you know, we call them Section 8 housing or subsidized housing or whatever. So places that have limited access to resources and limited access to dreams and you know and a lot of those places kind of change the way we think and we act, and so if we live in a violent environment, it becomes kind of like part of our thought process, you know, and we think that's how the world is supposed to be like, and those thoughts, you know, infect our feelings, you know, about how we feel about our behavior in life, and then we start acting that way, and it becomes part of our habits and then our value system, right? So once something becomes part of your value system,
It's your world.
oh my God, it's your world. It's hard to get out of, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, you know, again, young people join gangs not because of the violence, but unfortunately violence is part of that mundo, that world, the street world, right? And so in that world, you go through a lot of pain, a lot of loss, that a lot of times we don't see at the beginning. You know, I've seen friends die. I've gone to too many funerals already. I've gone to too many velorios and wakes of young people that lost their life at an early age. I've seen young people, you know, get into the whole drug culture. I've seen young women's corazones and get destroyed because they're in the world of violence, and so it was hard. You know, sometimes you just get tired of being a slave of violence, you know.
It's a bondage.
It's a
very
bondage.
much.
And then once I understood, the thing that made a change in my mind and in my heart was understanding and realizing that I was fighting my own people, that I was fighting my own community, that I was fighting my own hermanos. I was doing the same thing my community was doing in El Salvador, killing our own self for an idea that was not ours. Because nosotros no somos violentos.
Right.
Nosotros como latinos y hispanos y salvadoreños y colombianos and people from our cultura, if we go back to our indigenous ways, we're not violent people. We're people that have values que son fuertes, that we're honorable, we have honor, we work hard, we have dignity, we have dreams, we have aspirations, we're smart, we're intelligent. We build cultures and civilizations where we come from. That's not our way. Our way is not the way of being selfish or only thinking that the way to acquire power is with money and with authority and with force,
Right.
con fuerza and strength. No, we are the people that can generate and make change with ideas, with corazón, with unity, with collaboration.
That's
Esas son
great.
nuestras comunidades.
Exactly, and we're gonna talk more about that. Let's come back to that. I know I want to talk specifically about how you're doing that, how you're achieving that in our communities and changing them. Please stay with us, and once again, don't forget to always stay in tune with us. Also on generacionlatina.org. We'll be back with Juan Pacheco and more about gang and peace building.
Listen, I know you're upset, but it was just one date, and dating's like the stock market. There's ups and downs and ups and so always buy low.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to put up with you.
And we're back with Generación Latina here and Juan Pacheco. And Juan, we're asking you specifically now, what exactly was it that transformed you or propelled you into going from being a gang member to a peace building activist and leader in our community?
Well, I would put it into two things. I would say that what changed my life was, number one, a choice, and also faith. And at the time that I was, again, lots of things happened to me because I was involved in the world of violence. I lost a best friend. I lost a full-time scholarship to George Mason University.
Wow.
Because, when I was at a young age, I was always very curious about things, work, and into academics, and I was in this program that was going to give me a full ride, but because I no longer went to school and I skipped, and my grades kind of plummeted, lost that. Mm-hmm. I lost. I was incarcerated for a while, and just there comes a time in your life when you just that void and that place of hurt. It's like you don't want to be there anymore. You want to make a change, And then so what happened to me is once I got out of jail, I tried to look for a job. I couldn't find a job because now I have a record, I have a background, a police record in, out in computer systems that, if people look it up, I can't get a job. I, couldn't go back to school because I couldn't pay because I didn't have enough money to, pay for tuition. I, had to kind of start at the bottom. And that's when, I had to make a choice. I had to operate on faith. I was self-medicating myself with cocaine because I was depressed. I was secluding myself because, I didn't want to be out in the street, but where could I go, right? And at that time, there was this group out from California who was starting a pilot project here in the area in Northern Virginia. Name is Barrios Unidos, which means United Neighborhoods. It's a group who brought ex-gang members to talk about peace, to talk about changing your comunidad, to talk about changing el corazón. And at the time, they got a $500,000 grant from a congressman here in Virginia to start a pilot project where ex-gang members would be trained at the community college on how to do individual counseling, group counseling, how to understand the dynamics of addiction to substances. And so they were looking for young people who had that life experience, and somebody that I knew gave me a call. And they said, there's this group, and they're looking for young people who have a past like yours, and they're willing to put you back in school, and all these. And I had to believe. I had to believe that there had to be a different way. So I went and I took a risk, and I got interviewed by these folks, and they after the interview they said, we'll call you back. And I had heard that many times, I'll call you back, and I knew what it meant. Usually when people tell you that they'll call you back in a job interview, it's like they're not going to call you back. So I waited a week, and I went back to self-medicating again, and they gave me a call, and they set me down, and they said, Juan, we've interviewed PhDs and master's degree of social work people who have their education, but they don't have what you have. Because you have corazón, hermanito. and we're willing to give you an opportunity to work for us. So they sent me to school, and then they gave me a choice. They said, but you have to go back to school, and you have to have faith that what we're teaching you will have fruit, will have un producto in the future, right? So I made the choice.
And now you have 3 degrees, if I'm not mistaken.
And
correct?
because of that one choice, and because of the faith that people in different comunidad gave me, I've gone through life. I've struggled, and I have 3 degrees, and and it hasn't been, it hasn't, for me. It's not about money. Going to school and going to college is not just about money, because we think that going to college is expensive. But I tell people what's more expensive than education is ignorance. Ignorance costs a lot. Making wrong choices costs much more. Harming our brothers and sisters cuesta más, right? So I've had faith, and God always provides. And I've gotten scholarships. I work, part-time, full-time. I always find a job to pay for my education, and so ese es el tipo de orgullo,
right,
that we all have. It's not just about what I've done. It's the realization that all the young people listening to this message right now can make a change, can find progress, can move ahead, can find joy, can succeed in middle school and high school, and eventually go to college, but and they can do it.
correct.
If they have faith and they make the right choices,
Correct.
if they stay in school, if they choose to respect their parents,
Themselves, their own bodies.
that's a key realization. It's like, I was doing all these negative things because I really didn't like myself. But I didn't like myself because of the reflection that I saw in my community every day, that made me believe that I was somebody else. But I wasn't that violent person. I'm not that violent person,
Right.
And I work every day on being a more peaceful man, of being a man that respects all life, a man that respects my parents, my sisters, a stranger, a person who respects his friends, and it's a long journey.
It is, and it takes more courage in a sense to have that self-awareness and self-control over your decisions, over your impulses. It's much more courageous, But it is possible. Tell us, before we end, I want to know a little and understand more about your healing circles and the work you're doing with youth in particular. You're talking, this isn't so much an organization as you said, a movement. And it's youth-based, youth-driven. Talk to us about that.
Well, a healing circle is just a time and place, sacred time and space that elders or people who know how to do this thing create, where you bring sometimes even total strangers, right? Women, men, elders, young people, people from different religions, different nationalities and races, and it's just a sacred time and place where we talk about dolor, we talk about pain, we talk about suffering, we talk about those things that are still in nuestros corazones that we carry around every day, right? So part of the reason why a lot of young people and people are violent is because they still haven't healed the past hurt, or something that happened to them, in their life. So what we do is, part of healing is, number one, cutting up the corazón and expressing that hurt, because sometimes, a long time ago somebody told me that violence is the language of the inarticulate. So by inarticulate means that if I can't talk about what's happening adentro de mí, I'm going to be willing to hurt you to the degree that I'm dying inside. So part of that healing is talking about it. That's why, psychologists and therapists, cost, charge $300, $500 to talk about your problemas, right? Because talking about those issues and naming that thing that hurts you is giving you power over it. And you don't let that past hurt have power over you. So we allow young people to cry, to llorar, to talk about what's happened to them. And in our healing circles, even adults who are like 30, 40 years old talk about things that happened to them when they were 8 or 10 years old that they're still carrying around with them, that do not let them have positive relationship with other people because they have doubts and fear about the end result of those relationships. You know, and it all started when they were 8 or 5 years old. So if you start with young people, allowing them and teaching them the tools to express and have communication about the things that make them feel angry or hurt or the pain that they have, then they're not going to take it out on anybody else or on themselves. You know, part of the reason why, you know, women and young men hurt themselves by, you know, the whole bulimia and anorexia and self-cutting and self-injury and all these things is because they can't voice their opinion any other way. They don't know the tools, right? So they find the only way to express themselves, and usually it's very negative. So a healing circle is a way of expressing that, to let it out, to express the pain. But through the pain comes healing. And healing has to do with forgiving. So we forgive ourselves, we forgive the people that hurt us, we forgive our parents, our girlfriends, our boyfriends for being unfaithful, we forgive our parents for being neglectful, we forgive ourselves for not loving who we are. And then we learn how to love ourselves. What does love mean? Love means not just loving the people you like. Love means forgiving those people that hurt you.
Yeah.
Love means loving yourself, you know, even with all the flaws that you see. Because you were made with purpose and you were made with meaning and you were made to do something great in this lifetime that nobody else can. And that's why you love. You love because God loves us. And so in a healing circle, we go through that journey of healing that starts with naming the hurt, naming the pain. Then we go through forgiving the people that hurt us, forgiving ourselves. And then we go to the road of love. We talk about love. What does it mean? How do you do it? And how do you spread it, which is more importantly, right?
Right.
And so that's the journey, and that's the journey, you know, we all need to go through in life, learning how to go through the pain and struggle, and having faith that there's a higher power that will help us and that will make the right choices, knowing that there's always forgiving, that we can always forgive.
Yeah.
And we can do that anyway.
We have been forgiven, then we can forgive also. And I want to also know, how can we join you in this movement? Is there, you know, somewhere we can get in contact with you, or how can we do that?
Well, formally, you can go to our website is www.peacewarriors.net. But informally, you could join this movimiento in your own daily walk. Choose to love somebody today. Choose to forgive somebody that hurt you back in the day. Choose to forgive yourself for all the things you've done to yourself. Choose to forgive yourself because you drank too much. Choose to forgive yourself because you smoked too much. Choose to forgive yourself because you hurt your comunidad. Choose to forgive your mother who hurt you when you were young. Mothers need to forgive their sons for the things they've done. Mothers and fathers, specifically I'm talking to the Latino parents and the Latino mothers, give your children the time they need. Give your time, not just time, the amor,
Quality.
the attention, the quality time. Because your children aren't going to care about the nicest shoes you got them or the PS3. That's a different cultura that they're being brainwashed with.
Right.
We don't need that. We need amor. We need you. We need your time. We need your love. And we need your attention. We need you to hug us. We need you to ask us how school was. And even if when teenagers say, oh, we didn't do nothing, keep on asking. Ask every day. Because if they don't, somebody else is going to give them the attention. Somebody else is going to give attention to your daughter.
Absolutely.
Or to your son. So let's take responsibility. And I would say also to the people in the systems, in the school system, and in our communities, you know, we got to believe that young people can change. We got to stop locking young people up and throwing away the keys or deporting them or prosecuting them.
Right.
Let's start more prevention programs and really believe in that young people can change and that they can be redeemed.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Juan.
you.
Your message is powerful, and thank you all so much for joining us. Don't forget, we're also on generacionlatina.org.